Eric Bullard, who's just a scuzzbag beyond all scuzzbags, a longtime nemesis of Andrew Breitbart's, and Andrew used to mock him for being a George Soros tool. Eric Bullard tweeted something out about how it was a puff piece on a former Breitbart bottom feeder. Number of critics, liberals, Dems quoted in piece, 0. Well, I mean, you can find leftists to criticize me all over the internet. It really is not particularly difficult, including Eric Bullard. But this is my favorite part. I was trying to favorite this. I only have one favorite on Twitter. It is Chris Evans saying he genuinely dislikes me. So I really wanted to favorite this, but Debra Messing unfortunately blocked me. Debra Messing, the horrific actress from Will and Grace, has never been in anything since she can't act her way out of a paper bag. But she tweeted out that this article about me is why she canceled her subscription to the New York Times. She actually canceled her subscription to the New York Times because they ran an objective article about me that wasn't a hit job. So one article about a conservative that isn't a hit job, and Debra Messing cancels her subscription. I mean, to be fair, I thought her show, Will and Grace, is absolute crap, but I didn't cancel my cable because of it. And I think she's a terrible, terrible actress, but I didn't say I'm not using TiVo anymore. So well done, Debra Messing. Apparently then she spent the weekend painting a live horse or something, so I'm afraid that article may have driven her a little bit out of her mind. So I feel a little bit bad for that. I'm sorry, Debra Messing, that your life was ruined by having to read views with which you disagree. I guess life is very tough when you're a multi-million-dollar actress who hasn't made anything in 15 years and now is getting to be cast in a reboot of your own garbage show in the first place. Okay, terrible example for that site. But Milo himself is not anti-Israel, and neither is Breitbart. And so the kind of growth of the specific anti-Jewish movement, I think is, let's put it this way, I think it's more specific on the alt-right, and I think it's broader but deeper on the left. I think there's a select group of people on the right who are really openly anti-Semitic and hate me and send me death threats and send me memes about my kids being gassed in gas chambers and all this kind of crap. But on the left, what's closer to the heart of the Democratic Party is an anti-religious bigotry and an anti-Israel stance that is much more dangerous to Jews in the long run.
Hi, Ben. So earlier tonight and throughout a lot of the videos I've seen you in, you've made comments about how the government is, incompetent, incapable, generally bloated. And being a libertarian myself, I couldn't agree with you more. So my question is, which of your positions that aren't direct, life, liberty, property, natural rights protections, which of them do you think the government should be stepping in, and why should we have this bloated, incompetent government stepping in on those positions? So
we shouldn't have the bloated, incompetent government, particularly on the federal level, stepping in. I think local government is a slightly different issue because it's closer to home. So I have a sort of Montesquieu position on the role of local government. So I said earlier about spending on mental health facilities, for example. I specifically mean local facilities. I don't mean federal facilities, because local government tends to be a little bit less inefficient than federal. Like, the bigger the government gets and the more distant it gets from the people who actually elect it, the less you know your legislators, the less you know the people who are in charge of the money, the more inefficient the government tends to get and the more bloated it tends to get. So I think that there can be the idea, and the founders thought this too, there could be baseline kind of social safety nets. These did exist in colonial America, but these existed at the very, very local level, and particularly at the communal level. So my ideal is that they don't exist from the government at all, right? My ideal is that they exist in the religious community. This is why I think libertarians ought to embrace the idea of powerful social institutions like churches that are actually there taking care of poor people. But if that's not there, then local communities are going to have to, take care of, there are certain groups of people who just can't take care of themselves, and if they fall through the cracks, then that's a referendum on the local community. So, but beyond that, I don't think that the federal government has a role in nearly anything, neither did the founders, which is why the Constitution is, a 5,700-word document that governs the entirety of the federal government.
Thank you.
Hey, Ben. I appreciate your podcasts. They get me through LA traffic, so that's good.
I'll have to double the length, yeah.
Also, I was a member of the Bruin Republicans when I was here, so I'm glad to see they're still doing these kind of things.
And much bigger now than they were when we were here.
Yeah, much bigger now. It was like 7 people when I was here. I actually emailed you to get another ticket for my rabbi. I'm a member of a local Orthodox shul. He told me not to ask this because I'd lose, but I'm going to do it anyways. It's about abortion.
Okay.
And so...
Yeah, you're going to lose. But go ahead.
Okay, so here we go. Talmudic law states that an embryo is not deemed fully viable until the 40th day. And then Jewish mourning rites don't apply to an unborn child. The embryo is treated as an appendage. And Rashi, which I know you know...
Yeah, this is a machlok between Rashi and Rambam.
Right, and Rashi said that it's considered...
Not to get too abstruse, folks.
Right. Let's just say it's till the 40th day. That's not the moment of creation because, he talked about bones and whatnot and arteries forming. Also in the Exodus, they talked about how if two men get in a fight and a woman who's pregnant loses a child, he owes her the equivalent of an appendage. So my question to you is, you always talk about drawing a line in the sand. Where do you draw the line in the sand, the moment of inception, or creation, whatever? So the line is 40 days. According to Rashi, according to Talmudic law, why not draw the line at 40? Why do you disagree with that?
Okay, I disagree with that because basic biology does not draw any distinction at 40 days. So I think that Talmudic commentators who are writing in 70 CE are less knowledgeable about basic biology than we are now. They didn't have ultrasounds. They didn't know what was going on in the womb. There's some pretty bad science in the Talmud. To be frank, there's some pretty bad science in Rambam. I think Rambam would have been one of the first people to actually suggest that modern science ought to be taken at face value. That said, even in the Talmud, there's no notion that you can abort at will before 40 days. So there's serious halachic authorities, not to get too deep into Jewish law, but there are serious halachic authorities, many of them, who have talked about the availability and use of abortion before 40 days, and the vast majority decision, from what I understand, is that it is essentially forbidden except in exigent circumstances. So they set a different standard with regard to is it a life or is it not a life, Talmudically, but that doesn't actually change the behavior of whether you're allowed to obtain an abortion by choice before 40 days.
So one follow-up, assuming not that the mom...
By the way, I don't form my opinions. This is one of these issues where I don't form my opinions